since helping to pass the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, a large portion which was written literally in this room by Senator Capito and other colleagues in our staffs. But since helping to pass that law over 2 years ago, our committee has spent a fair amount of time analyzing its implementation. I say it's one thing to have hearings on legislation. It's another thing to vote in committees, subcommittees. It's another thing to pass it in the House, the Senate, reconcile the differences, get the president to sign it. But the hard part sometimes is implementation, and we've continued to focus a whole lot on implementation of those pieces of legislation. As we implement the transformational investments in our nation's roads, our highways, and our bridges, as well as our drinking water and wastewater infrastructure. Today, we will build on that earlier work by discussing some of our law's lesser known but meaningful investments in ecosystem restoration, wildlife crossings, and pollinator habitat. I've long believed that we can grow our economy and support jobs while protecting our environment. That's a theme that you'll hear voiced almost every time we meet in this committee. The programs that we're examining today and the fact that Congress is investing in them through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and I might add with the encouragement of the current administration, are proof that I'm not alone in that belief, or that we're not alone in that belief. Specifically, in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, we provided the Fish and Wildlife Service with $455 million to facilitate fish passage across our nation to support 4 regional restoration initiatives, including the Delaware River Basin Program. Today, we look forward to hearing from Director Williams about how the service is putting these dollars to work quickly and how these investments improve resiliency and leverage private investments. In the Delaware River Basin, we have seen firsthand how restoration activities oftentimes make our communities stronger while benefiting our economy. And for example, we know that when we make our ecosystem more resilient, clean up our drinking water, and conserve wildlife habitat, it makes Delaware a more attractive place to work, to play, and to live. And I think that's true not just for the first state, it's true for all states. And as part of our Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, we also provided the Federal Highway Administration with $350 million to stand up a pilot program for wildlife crossings across the country. In addition, we authorized $10 million over 5 years for the agency to support pollinator-friendly roadsides and highway rights-of-way. And why did we do that? Well, in addition to habitat fragmentation driving biodiversity loss, wildlife vehicle collisions represent a serious safety issue for drivers. In fact, there are more than 1 million vehicle collisions involving wildlife each year in our country. 1 million. The good news is that by working together, the federal government, states, and other conservation partners, we are making progress to address both issues. Just yesterday, the Federal Highway Administration announced the first round of grants under the Wildlife Crossing Pilot Program. We applaud that. It's worth noting that the demand for this funding outweighed the available dollars by 5 times. 5 times. Demonstrating clear demand and need for this important program. And what's more, the pilot program is already catalyzing action at the state and local level. For example, some states are now passing laws and setting aside funding to contribute to this work, and we're encouraged by that. Some states have identified the Wildlife Crossing Pilot Program as a possible funding source in their planning documents. In the past 2 years, 12 states, I think including a couple of states that are here represented here today, California, Utah, Massachusetts, and others have passed legislation to support wildlife crossings and committed an estimated $240 million to fund habitat connectivity projects. Other states have been leading on wildlife crossings for some time and are creatively engaging the public in their efforts. For example, Wyoming sells wildlife conservation license plates that help fund the state's work to construct crossings. Businesses even provide discounts to customers who purchase these conservation license plates. So let me close, if I could, by saying that the Federal Highway Administration has an incredible opportunity to partner with others as you work to implement the pilot program. And that includes working with the Department of Interior and its agencies, including the Fish and Wildlife Service, and which we know have a wealth of expertise in prioritizing habitat connectivity. We're interested in learning more today about how the Federal Highway Administration is collaborating with the service, with states and other stakeholders to make the Wildlife Crossing pilot program as successful and impactful as possible. We also hope to hear more today about how the Federal Highway Administration is balancing the habitat connectivity needs of smaller species with larger species and how the agency is considering aquatic connectivity in this new program. With all that in mind, we look forward to hearing from Assistant Administrator Fausch today about his agency's experience getting a wildlife crossings off the ground, both the challenges and as well as the opportunities for going forward.